Good morning, everyone. I want you to take a mental journey with me for a second. Imagine you are an architect. You are tasked with designing the most magnificent, unshakable building the world has ever seen. Where do you start? You'd likely look for the strongest materials: reinforced steel, highest grade granite, concrete that sets like iron. You would not walk down to the riverbank, pick up a handful of mud and say, "This is it. This is my cornerstone." And yet that is exactly where God starts. When God builds a leader, he doesn't look for the world's version of reinforced steel. He looks for the ordinary. He looks for the forgotten. He looks for the flawed. Because God is not an architect who works with materials. He is a creator who breathes life into dust. And if you are sitting here today feeling ordinary, overlooked, or even unqualified, I have news for you. You are the perfect candidate. Let's look at the greatest leader of the Old Testament, Moses. If you were writing a resume for a leader, Moses would have been at the top of the list in Act 1. He was raised in the palace of Pharaoh. He was educated in the best schools of Egypt. He had power, influence, and status. He was somebody, but God had to unbuild that leader before he could build his leader. After Moses murdered a man and fled into the desert, he spent 40 years, not 40 days. 40 years? Doing what? Leading a bunch of stubborn sheep through the sand. Think about that. The man destined to stand before the most powerful empire on earth and say, "Let my people go," spent 4 decades in the mundane. Why? Because God builds leaders in the mundane. On paper, Moses was a failure, a fugitive, a shepherd ant occupation the Egyptians actually despised. He was as ordinary as the sand he walked on. But in that wilderness, God was doing something profound. He was stripping away Moses' self-sufficiency. He was teaching him patience. He was teaching him how to navigate a stubborn flock without an army. When God finally appeared in the burning bush, he didn't call a prince of Egypt. He called a humble shepherd. If you are in a season of shepherding right now, boring job, a mundane routine, a waiting period, don't despise it. God is building your patience, your character, and your trust. He's getting the Egyptian pride out of you so he can put his spirit into you. Now, let's look at Israel's greatest king, David. When God sent the prophet Samuel to anoint a new king, Samuel did what any logical person would do. He looked at the oldest son, Eliab, tall, handsome, strong. Samuel thought, "Surely this is the Lord's anointed." But God said something that should echo in our ears forever. "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. David wasn't even at the interview. He was out in the fields doing the dirty work. God bypassed the soldiers and the scholars and chose a shepherd boy with dirty fingernails and a harp. Why? Because David had a heart that chased after God when no one was watching. But here's the crucial part about God building with ordinary material. The cracks are still there. David was a man after God's own heart, but he was also an adulterer and a murderer. He was a flawed human being, yet God called him a leader. This tells us something revolutionary. God doesn't need you to be perfect to use you. He needs you to be available and repentant. He takes the ordinary clay with all its impurities, cracks, and flaws, and he molds it. The pressure of the potter's hand isn't to break us, but to reshape us. Your past failures are not a disqualification for leadership. They are the very testimony that God will use to lead others. Finally, let's look at the most influential group of leaders in human history, the disciples. Jesus walks along the Sea of Galilee. He doesn't go to the temple to recruit priests. He doesn't go to the Roman military academy to recruit strategists. He walks up to a bunch of blue-collar workers, fishermen. He says, "Follow me." Imagine the scene. These guys had calloused hands. They smelled like fish. They probably had terrible credit and questionable social skills. They argued among themselves about who was the greatest. One of them, Peter, had a mouth that operated faster than his brain. And then there was Matthew, a tax collector. In that culture, that meant he was a traitor and a thief. He was the most hated man in town. This was Jesus' leadership team. It looked like a disaster, but watch what happens. Jesus spends 3 years with them. He lives life with them, teaches them, rebukes them, eats with them, and serves them. He builds them from the inside out. And these ordinary men, these misfits, turn the world upside down. Why? Because once they were filled with the Holy Spirit, their ordinariness became their greatest asset. Peter's boldness, which once got him in trouble, became the boldness that preached to thousands. Matthew's attention to detail as a tax collector likely helped document the life of Jesus we read today. God doesn't polish away your personality, He redeems it for His purpose. So where does that leave you today? Maybe you are here and you feel like the shepherd in the wilderness, stuck unseen, and wondering if God has forgotten you. He hasn't. He is building your character. Maybe you are here and you feel like David, aware of your flaws, aware of the mess in your past, wondering how God could ever put a mirror in your hand and ask you to lead others. He can, because His strength is made perfect in your weakness. See, the world promotes people based on what they can do, but God promotes people based on who they are becoming. If you feel ordinary today, rejoice. You're the raw material God specializes in. He took a shepherd boy and made a king. He took a stammering fugitive and made a deliverer. He took a ragtag group of fishermen and made apostles. And He is here today, ready to take you with your fears, your failures, and your fishy smell and build a leader that will impact your family, your workplace, and your community. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until you have all your ducks in a row. The God who began a good work in you, in your ordinary, everyday life, will be faithful to complete it. Let Him pick you up off the riverbank. Let the great architect do his work. You are not just ordinary. You are His masterpiece in the making. Go and lead from the heart He has given you.